Ladies and gentlemen, to begin our program, please turn your attention to the video screens.
At this summit, you're going to hear a lot about creating success for young people. I'm Devontae White, and I'm 20 years old and I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. To be honest, I don't quite feel successful yet. I'm moving in the right direction, though. Because I am lucky to have found the right supports that I need, now I know myself as an individual. I make better decisions, and I am here to make a positive state of mind, but it was a long journey for me to get here.
My name's Hyman Soria. I'm 24 years old and live in Pasadena, California. I did not think education was important. I was living one day at a time with no plan. I was not worried about my future. I was on the streets trying to make $1. I would tell myself as a child to do better in school and have a dream.
My name is Melanie Roman, and I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. In the 18 years I've lived, I've experienced more things than many will ever have in their lifetime. I've had many struggles that I chose for myself and those that were chosen for me, given the neighborhood and environment I was born into.
My story is a story of the youth that's usually forgotten. The story of the youth stereotyped as a trouble and a lost cause. I live in a community where people do not feel safe physically and emotionally. Kids grew up in an environment of guns, violence, drugs, and poverty. They come from an environment where adults want to care, but do not know how because they grew up in the exact same environment. I was one of those kids who became a product of the negativity in my neighborhood.
I found myself involved in things that no one should be involved in. I was fighting in the street with boys, involved in an abusive relationship, and not taking school seriously. You could have one great person in your life, like I had my mom, but sometimes you don't even realize how much of what you didn't have can affect you.
Young people need many things to be successful. We need the right support in all parts of our life. Unfortunately, I learned about what young people need to be successful by not having the right things early in my life.
I am part of creating that success. I help high-risk youth every day. I'm a chaser focused on helping students get their diploma and get their mind right. Chasers literally chase students back to school to complete coursework and graduate. Chasing includes coaching, mentoring, and tutoring. Chasers come from similar conditions as the students that we serve, including previous dropouts, juvenile delinquents, and teen parents. We know the streets and work through youth in the neighborhood with one goal in mind: graduation.
When I first arrived at my school as a 9th grader, I felt like I had to pick which crowd to fit in or just be alone. Just like the streets, I caught myself getting distracted, fighting, suspended for arguing with teachers. I understand that I was a difficult student, but that does not mean that I did not matter. Except for a few teachers. No one cared to understand why I was so angry and fighting all the time. Teachers' first response didn't need to be, leave my classroom, or it should have been what is wrong. It didn't mean they let me walk out of their classroom and skip and leave school for 5 months. These are all just ways to tell me that I did not matter. I was fortunate to have one teacher, Mrs. Sullivan, who worked with me and found an opportunity for me to graduate in the fall 2011, and I received my high school diploma.
My turning point was when I realized I could graduate. I did not want to disappoint anybody. My mother didn't even know I was a dropout, so I had to figure it out. My mentor was my boss, Dr. Michael Iran, the original chaser. I was the first dropout and first motivation to open the school. We are in our 5th year of our charter school. We re-engage 400 dropouts per year and graduate over 100 every year.
Part of the reason I dropped out is because the schools I attended pushed me out and were of very low quality. Some people may judge the negative choices some youth make, but we need the right opportunities so we have good choices to choose from. No matter who you are, we all have a right to a meaningful and quality education and community. A lot of times people talk about how schools in my neighborhood are uncaring, under-resourced, and push students out. It's true that there are many that are like that, but it is possible to have a great school for the community that I come from.
After graduation, I lost my job at the factory and everything seemed to be going wrong. So I really thought my life was over. I needed to get my life back together. I started working again and reconnected with my mentor, Michaela, and stopped hanging out with the same friends. I realized I wanted to help others like Michaela helped me and get young people back on track. As I helped people, I got better and wanted to do good in the world. My motivation started with Michaela, but now the students motivate me. I'm taking classes at a community college towards my associate's degree.
Just as my decisions affect my success, so do the decisions of the adults who create our schools and our communities. I am making better decisions for myself now. I know I have to work hard and motivate myself. I work as a youth organizer in my own community through a group called Teen Empowerment. My experiences there help me to utilize and hone my skills as I build relationships and challenge myself every day. Having a supportive system at home, school, and work will help me to get to the top. We can't do it alone, and I'm not doing it alone.
I know that I have a responsibility and a role in gaining my education and success, but I need adults to care about me so that I can care about myself and want to do better. Like Melanie, I'm also a part of Teen Empowerment. Even though the outside may look at me as a guy from the streets, in my heart, I wanted the same things as everyone else, to have a place where I could be important. At Teen Empowerment, I have caring adults who really invest in me. I have a safe place where I'm not judged and I'm free to express my thoughts, my ideas, and my experiences. I became a visible leader in my community and my family instead of being looked at as a problem.
I enjoy helping others and being useful to people that are struggling with situations I've been through. You get addicted to doing good and giving back.
I feel like some adults only see the exterior that we walk into school with. They don't see the root of who we are and the root causes of why we come in with so much anger, hurt, and attitude. In the end, we are all still children. If you want us to care, we need our adults to care. When you care, you change our lives.
I don't give up on myself anymore. So I ask all the adults not to give up on me or other youth like me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome America's Promise founding chair, General Colin Powell, and current chair, Mrs. Alma Powell, to the stage.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Microphones aren't on. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. Well, Alma and I are very pleased to welcome you to this Grad Nation Summit of 2013. I have to reflect back some 16 years to when this all began. We had a great summit in Philadelphia. And after the summit was over, everybody went home except about 6 of us who were left. And that Monday morning, we sat around my office trying to decide, now what do we do? How do we get this going? Is this for real? And over the first few years, we started to build coalitions. We started to reach out to organizations that were committed to the same principles we were committed to. I cannot tell you what a pleasure it is for me, what a feeling of gratitude it is for me to share with you all the success that you have achieved over the last 16 years. Look at this audience. We never thought we'd have something like this when we started out. We are changing America. We are changing our kids. We have faith in you, faith in our kids, and the proof is that the dropout rate is going down, and it's going to go all the way down. Our principles remain the same. Get in the lives of our kids. Help those kids who are in need. You heard these youngsters just talk about it. I want to show you just one picture that I have and say a few words about it before turning the proceedings over to my wife, Alma. Can I have my picture up, please? I hope. There it is. This is Cristo Rey High School in Brooklyn, New York. Look at the kids in the audience. You can see that they're all minority. Look at the room itself. It's very austere. It is an old building that's been brought back to life in order to serve as a Cristo Rey High School. Look at the young man. His name is Cruz. He's standing in front of me, and he's standing at attention. I made him stand at attention. I play a game when I speak to young people. I give a little homily, and then they ask questions. But I make them come up, stand in front of me, stand at attention, arms down at your side, feet 45 degrees spread, head up, look straight ahead, no slouching, no hat on your head, no baggy pants, and speak out smartly and sharply. Now, I put this picture up on my Facebook page, and the first reaction we got was from someone who said, "Well, what is this all about? Why is the general making that kid stand at attention like that?" But then he paused and said, "But he sure looks good." And he does look good, and he enjoyed it. He put it on his Facebook page, and it went viral. And it captures something that I have been thinking about a lot in recent years. We have our 5 promises, but what do those 5 promises come together to give a kid? They give a kid structure. They give a kid a structure in which to live. They give a kid an understanding of what life is all about and how there are people in your life, your mentors, the safe places, all the other things we are doing. People in your life to give you the structure you need so that you can keep moving forward. Without structure in the life of a child, beginning at the earliest age, all the way through the ages of the youngsters we just saw, youngsters will be at risk. When does structure begin? When does learning begin? It is not just a school problem. It begins in the home. It begins the first time that a baby in its mother's arms hears its mother's voice and knows, that is my mother. That is the language I will learn. She is the one who takes care of me. That's when learning, structure, and the path to a successful future begins. And so as we talk about schools and as we talk about teachers and the education system, let's remember that we have to go further and further back to the prenatal period to make sure that we're bringing our youngsters along. We have no more important task in our country now than to prepare the next generation of youngsters to take leadership positions in our country. We're becoming more and more of a minority nation, the only nation on the face of the earth that can handle that and look to the prospect of the minorities being the majority of our citizens. We can handle it because that's who we are. Nation of nations, touched by every nation, and we in turn touch every nation. And as long as we keep putting structure in the lives of these youngsters, 22 graduated in this first class at Cristo Rey, and all 22 are going to college, and all 22 are the first ones in their family on a path to success. We want to see that in every family. And now it is my very distinct pleasure to turn the proceedings over to somebody who I have been married to for going on 51 years, the chairman of America's Promise, Mrs. Alma Powell.
Thank you, Colin. That's a good way to get us started this morning. I want to thank all of you for being here at this summit. It's a meeting of minds, energies, and ideas around the common cause of realizing the promise that resides in our young people. and more importantly, keeping the promise of America for them. Now, I especially want to thank, before we go any further, the people who make this happen, our corporate and foundation partners who have joined with us to put on this wonderful summit. Starting with our premier sponsors, Target, AT&T, Sun Life Financial, and State Farm. State Farm is also our Grad Nation presenting sponsor. Our signature sponsors are the Apollo Group, the Bezos Family Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Casey Family Programs, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the Ford Foundation, and the Lumina Foundation. And our benefactor sponsors, Annie E. Casey Foundation, the Academy Foundation, B&Y Mellon, and the National Cable and Telecommunications Association. And of course, we cannot forget our co-host, the Alliance for Excellent Education, Civic Enterprises, and the Everyone Graduates Center. This is the first Grad Nation Summit for our new CEO, John Gompertz, and I hope all of you will have a chance to meet him during the course of the day. Many of you already know him well, or you have been a part of something that he's had a big hand in shaping. From the early days of the Corporation for National and Community Service, to the dramatic expansion of Experience Corps, and to the leadership of AmeriCorps. But this is not his first summit. What makes his joining us even more special is he was there at the beginning. He was there as part of the team planning for the President's Summit that launched this enterprise over 15 years ago. It's a good reminder that the work we all do together requires years of steady dedication and unfailing optimism that we can fulfill the promise of America. John, wherever you are out there, it's good to have you home. The diversity of our sponsors, and actually the diversity in this room, reinforces that all Americans have roles to play in this Grad Nation campaign. Businesses, nonprofits, foundations, educators, policymakers, community organizations, caring adults, and most importantly, the young people themselves. It also reinforces the truth that we're all in this together. What we have here is not an education challenge, it is an American challenge. Like a jigsaw puzzle, there are many, many pieces to our work. You will hear more about them over the next 2 days. You'll hear more about Common Core standards and the importance of early years. You'll hear more about extended learning time and early warning systems so that we can act when students are heading off track. You will hear more about the key role of social and emotional learning, about the role that the business community can play, and about how we tell the story of youth opportunity in ways that will change hearts and minds and move people and communities to action. Each one of these pieces is vital because the picture is not complete without every single one of them. And we cannot be so focused on our own pieces that we lose sight of that bigger picture. We cannot solve the puzzle of preparing young people for success unless we lift our eyes to the big picture, the big goal. And that's what this summit is all about. And I hope as you actively participate in the sessions, you will see more clearly how your piece of the puzzle fits into the campaign of the Grad Nation. Today, you will hear about the progress that we have made, and I'm not giving you a spoiler alert when I tell you that it is a direct result of what happens when we work together for America's children and America's future. It happened because so many people with differing knowledge and resources came to the table to solve this puzzle together. Not just the schools, not just the government agencies, but business, faith groups, nonprofits, and each one of you. And that's how we will continue to make progress. Our work as an alliance is about building public will to demand better outcomes for children, and we are bringing them together today with the many thought leaders like you, and fusing the energy of inspired innovations into something bigger and more powerful. And we're all about sharing that knowledge. That is the bigger picture we're working on together, and because of you, all the vision of a Grad Nation is beginning to take shape. We're looking forward to these next 2 days together. Thank you for being here, and we thank you for your devotion to America's children. And now, speaking of people and organizations that are devoted to our children, while we all have roles to play in building a Grad Nation, there's a critical role that only business can play. And when it comes to helping realize the promise of our children, few companies provide a better example to the rest of the business community than Target. We're grateful that Target is a key partner in our work, a sponsor of this summit, and especially a champion of early learning and literacy that give children a platform for their success. And I am very pleased that Laisha Ward is here today. Laisha is the president of the Community Relations for Target, and we are thrilled to have us here. Please give her a warm welcome. Laisha?
Good morning. You can say good morning back. All right, there you go. Feels like church now, I think. Thank you, Alma and General Powell, for your personal commitment to service and America's youth. It is truly extraordinary. They're such incredible role models. Let's give them another round of applause. And to John Gompertz and the staff at America's Promise Alliance, we truly value and appreciate your leadership as well. I also want to thank the other sponsors, along with the remarkable lineup of speakers, elected officials, and cross-sector leaders who are here today, including Wendy Spencer, CEO of the Corporation for National and Community Service, where I have the great pleasure of serving on the board. And last but not least, of course, I have to say thank you to the Target team that is here today and who serves all across this country. I'm humbled to do this great work alongside all of them. A round of applause to my team, please. Thank you. On behalf of Target, it's been an incredible honor to partner with America's Promise Alliance to improve education outcomes for children, whether through continued sponsorship of this summit, supporting the development of the Knowledge Center, or the new Raise Up campaign. This initiative with Tufts University aims to raise up the voices of young people, engage them in the conversation as part of the solution to help keep kids in school and become part of the Grad Nation. Target will support qualitative and quantitative research in diverse Grad Nation communities to learn more from the voices of in-school, out-of-school, and re-engaged youth. The research will tap into the strengths and needs of students to help bridge the gap between traditional academic success indicators and social and emotional indicators that matter for youth success in school. Findings from the Raise Up campaign research will be presented at next year's summit by youth and will be leveraged to create plans to assist in achieving the 2020 graduation rates, the goal of which, of course, is 90% graduation rates by then. The kids who brought the 5 promises to life earlier today were extraordinary, and I had the great pleasure of spending some time with them backstage. They were very nervous, but they came out here, I think, with a kind of heart that should encourage all of us to continue to do this great work. They were truly inspirational. And they represent kids of all backgrounds. They're from all over the country, from all ages, races, and backgrounds, full of hope and promise. Research shows that we're certainly making strides towards ensuring that more kids will graduate from high school, but we need to do more. We need to put thought into action because too many kids are not getting the quality education they need. We need to do this with a sense of urgency because creating an educated workforce in the 21st century is critical to our national and economic security. You know, at Target, we are convinced that nothing is more important to the future of our children, our communities, and our country than education. Educated and engaged citizens are central to our thriving democracy and our role as a global leader. And at the core of our company's commitment is a really simple and yet powerful belief that every child deserves a quality education regardless of race or socioeconomic status. It's why we've committed $1 billion to the cause, an investment we'll reach by the end of 2015, with an emphasis on ensuring that students can read proficiently by the end of third grade, given the data that shows how important this milestone is to graduation rates. And it's why we give 5% of our income. That's more than $4 million every week. And we're delighted that many of our nonprofit partners who help us do this work are here today. Thank you for everything that you do to make it possible for young people to reach their full potential. That's why Target team members volunteer thousands of hours annually. They're in schools across America running libraries. They're reading to and mentoring students. They're stocking in-school food pantries and showing kids that education is important and that they are important. And that's why we use our strengths as a national retailer to convene cross-sector leaders, build public-private partnerships, and raise awareness about the importance of education. A critical part of our work is listening to the voices of students across America and making sure that they're a part of the solution. So we've created spots in English and in Spanish to amplify their voices and to celebrate the moment when students find out that they've been accepted into college. Let's take a look.
Yes! Yes! I'm accepted! It's amazing! It's amazing! I'm going to college. It's official.
But then you opened up the door, you opened up the door, now I start to believe in something else. I took the faithful leap and I put all my things and all my love and gave it to somebody else. But how do I know if I'll make it through? How do I know? Where's the proof in you?
I didn't open it. It was like this. I haven't looked at it.
Congratulations on your approval as a commercial major with
Me aceptaron en college.
Thank you. I love those spots. They're from the heart to the heart, and it's an experience that we want every child in America to have the opportunity to see. You know, it's up to us to demand and support high standards and accountability to improve academic achievement. Doing what's best for students should guide our work, even if it makes us adults a little uncomfortable. Mrs. Coretta Scott King is a mentor, had been a mentor of mine, and she's the wife of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And she used to tell me, do what you have to do. Do what you've been called upon to do. This is our calling. The children of this country deserve our very best effort. So thank you and enjoy the summit, and let's take these thoughts and put them into action in our local communities. Thank you so much.
And thank you to Target. You may have heard the President say in his State of the Union a few weeks ago that each year, 3 million million jobs go unfilled in this nation because we don't have skilled workers for them. Those comments remind us that this issue is as much an economic one as it is a moral and education one. We say it often, but there's no way around it. We are all in this together. We're in it together because we all pay a price when children don't graduate. There are few companies out there that recognize this truth more deeply than AT&T. And there are few companies that have stepped up in a greater capacity to change this than AT&T. Those of you that were here with us last year heard them announce another record investment in our children with their historic Aspire program. At the Alliance, we can say from personal experience that their partnership and leadership is something truly extraordinary. They've been with us on the graduation journey from the beginning, which is why I'm so glad they're here with us today. Please join me in welcoming our partner and Chief Sustainability Officer of AT&T, Charlene Lake.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Powell. Your and General Powell's leadership and support and passion for students is really an inspiration for us all. Well, welcome to everyone. Weren't those Target commercials incredible? Thank you again to Laisha and the whole Target team. It is really a privilege for me to be here today, to be able to help introduce to you some of the most important education findings this nation has known. What Dr. Bob Balfans and John Bridgeland are about to share with us is really more than a report. It's a celebration of progress, and it's a call to action, and it's a blueprint for our eventual success. The Grad Nation Powell Report is the nation's only comprehensive assessment of high school graduation rates. And this report this year brings us great news. The high school graduation rate now is at its highest level since 1974. 40 years of inertia has finally begun to shift. We should celebrate that progress, but it is not time for a victory lap. We have very important and actually quite treacherous ground that we need to cover. The remaining graduation gaps, particularly for minority, disabled, and low-income students, are as morally unacceptable and economically unsustainable as they were in 1974. So the fact that this is the first time in 40 years, the first time that we truly feel encouraged, tells you just how difficult the dropout crisis is to address. AT&T, like so many of you here in this room, we've been working on this for a good number of years. Our marquee Aspire program provides financial support to the best-in-class approaches, and it also involves our 240,000 employees in helping students become successful. But it was really when we found the Alliance partners and the Grad Nation co-conveners like Bridge and Bob that we knew we had found a way to focus the power of many on the needs of one very focused priority. So in order to deliver on the promise that you're going to hear in this report today, we have to stay focused. Our past Grad Nation reports have helped us do that. They've proposed workable solutions like the community summits, that have encouraged us all to keep our eye on the goal of a 90% graduation rate by 2020. So the statistics in this year's report are really essential. They help us track the progress. They help us see the big vision. So I encourage you to read the report. I encourage you to take a look at the case studies that show some of the programs that are behind the report. But what I really encourage you to do is to think about the numbers in the gap, because each number in that gap represents a child who has potentially lost hope forever reaching his or her full potential. So I'd like to offer you just a very quick snapshot of what it looks like to be one of those numbers. I want you to know about Vanessa Ramirez. 17% of Houston's youth grew up in extreme poverty, and Vanessa is one of those youth. In Vanessa's own words, quote, "While growing up, I thought I was never going to make it. I had settled with the idea that I would live with my parents forever, hopefully working at a fast food restaurant. I never had any other aspirations. I felt like I fell into a black hole. This black hole makes you feel like you're blind, that every step you take is wrong. You feel invisible, and at the same time, like everyone is staring at you. It makes you feel like you can't breathe because many times I couldn't." End quote. So Vanessa's life began to turn around when she walked through the doors of a program called Genesis Works, and the program helps inner city children become leaders and gives them great confidence. So she went through training, and she started at a paid internship at a Fortune 100 company, which is part of the Genesis Works program. So again, in her words, a while later, quote, "I learned so many professional and IT skills at Genesis Works, it even helped me heal. Am I out of the black hole yet? Not completely. But I know I'm going to make it. I now have a great job and even the opportunity to go to college. I have everything I grew up thinking I would never have." That was last year. So today, Vanessa is enrolled in Sam Houston State University on track, headed for a career in forensic psychology or criminal justice. That is really incredible. And as a country, we cannot afford to give up on students like Vanessa. As consumers, we need what she contributes to this economy, and as businesses, we need her to walk through the doors of our businesses, ready to join a talented and diverse workforce. And as human beings, we need to care for our country's youth. And that's why this report, it doesn't belong on a shelf. It belongs in our hands as a roadmap, and it belongs in our minds as we speed into the future. So our guides for this journey are Dr. Bob Balfance and John Bridgeland. Dr. Balfance, Bob co-directs the Everyone Graduates Center at Johns Hopkins University School of Education and is a research scientist at the university's Center for Social Organization of Schools. John Bridgeland, Bridge, is CEO and president of a public policy firm, Civic Enterprises. He brings deep experiences in DC, including his role as former White House domestic policy director. Bob's work, focusing on the Dropout Nation campaign, has been featured in the acclaimed PBS documentary series Frontline. And Bridges' work inspired a Time magazine cover and a couple of shows on Oprah. Their work has influenced the news media we've consumed, the books we've read, the organizations we've funded, the students we've served. Frontline and Oprah, those are some pretty impressive credentials. But also part of their credentials is Vanessa, because the Vanessas of this country are exactly why we are all here today. So, Bridge and Bob, bring it on.
Good morning. Thanks, Charlene, for your wonderful leadership and all that AT&T has done to advance this important work. And thank you, Laisha Ward, for creating new excitement around going to college. It was wonderful. Today, we are releasing this year's annual update on the high school dropout epidemic, Building a Grad Nation, or more appropriately called the Powell Report, after our leaders, General Colin and Alma Powell, which shows significant progress in addressing the high school dropout challenge and the challenge that remains. The nation's high school dropout crisis is no longer a silent epidemic, and many of America's dropout factories are closing or being retooled. Reform efforts and collaborations, including many of those led by you in this room over the last decade, are finally paying off. Bob and I would like to thank our partners, the America's Promise Alliance and its leader, John Gompertz, and their wonderful team, the Alliance for Excellent Education, led by Governor Bob Wise, our lead sponsor, AT&T, our supporting sponsor, State Farm, and our co-authors, Mary the Bruce and Joanna Fox. First, we present the progress and then the challenge. Over the last decade, the graduation rate inched up 1.5 percentage points from 2001 to 2006, then rocketed forward 5 percentage points in the next 4 years, at a time when reform efforts were strongly underway. The top headline from today's report is this: for the first time in our nation's history, the nation is on pace to reach its high school graduation rate goal. If the nation maintains the rate of progress from 2006 to 2010, and let me say this will require a lot of hard continuing work, it will increase the graduation rate 12 percentage points from 78% today to over 90% by the class of 2020. Two states, Wisconsin and Vermont, Bob and I like to joke that maybe it's the dairy farming, have already reached the 90% high school graduation rate goal. Based on their pace of progress over the last 4 years, 18 other states in the green are on pace as well. Anyone here today from one of those 18 states? All right. Please keep them on pace. Other data that Bob will share is reinforcing of these trends. We're making good progress.
Thank you, Bridge. Another part of the encouraging news is that the gains in graduation rates have been really driven by the students most impacted by the graduation crisis. Over the past 4 years, it's been improvements in the graduation rates of Hispanic and Latino students and African American students, which has driven the nation's progress. Over that time, the Hispanic graduation rate has increased by 10 percentage points, and the African American rate by 6.5. That means they're improving 3 and 4 times faster than the graduation rate for white students. One reason graduation rates are going up is the number of low-performing, low graduation rate high schools continues to go down. We found in 2002 that 2,000 high schools produced half the nation's dropouts. These are the schools we deem the nation's dropout factories. As you can see, by 2011, this has fallen to 1,424, over a 500 school decrease, about 30%. Even better, there's been a more rapid decline in the number of students attending these schools. And today we reach another milestone. Not only is the nation on pace to reach a 90% graduation rate for the first time, but thanks to the efforts of many of the people in this room and many people working across the nation, there are 1 million fewer students today attending high schools where graduation is not the norm than in 2002. And that is a tremendous rate of social progress. Again, because these schools were overwhelmingly attended by low-income minority students, they're the ones who have benefited the most from this improvement. One of the most shocking findings of our report was that in 2002, nearly half of African American students attended a high school where graduation is not the norm. Today, that's been reduced to 25%. Now, that's still a national tragedy that we have to work every day to think that still 1 out of 4 African American students today attends a school where graduation is not the norm. But cutting that in half again in less than a decade and an equal decline for Hispanic students does show that the efforts in paying attention to this and really attacking the problem in a directed, focused way makes a difference. So Bridge is now going to tell us why we're making progress.
By 2006, when the class of 2010 were freshmen, awareness of the dropout problem was rising, and school leaders started to address it more aggressively with better data in an era of accountability. Initial drivers included federal policy, including No Child Left Behind, state reforms, and numerous school districts, foundations, and nonprofits working together to improve, break up, or replace those large high schools with low graduation rates, which Bob termed the nation's dropout factories. This period also focused on the importance of 9th grade as a critical transition year that could keep students on track. More recent drivers include early warning systems, middle grade reforms, addressing chronic absenteeism, and school improvement grants, efforts you'll hear more about over the next 2 days at this summit. It's striking, however, that progress occurred during a decade when it became harder to graduate. States raised graduation requirements, adopted college prep sequences of courses, and required passing exit and end-of-course exams for graduation. At the same time, the next generation of dropout recovery and alternative pathways to graduation for overage and undercredited students had begun. But here comes the whiplash. The Grad Nation campaign is making good progress, but history is a constant reminder that national leaders have repeatedly sounded alarms, set national goals, and not met them. The groundbreaking A Nation at Risk report in 1983 offered sober evidence of our educational decline, and if you haven't read it in recent years, go back and read it. It's a beautifully written report. While citing rising high school graduation rates over previous decades as a ray of hope. After this landmark report, 3 successive presidents challenged the nation to reach the 90% high school graduation rate goal by certain dates, only to see those deadlines missed or the pace of progress far too slow to meet them. This is a warning to us to do it right this time and stay focused on implementing our plan until the end. While some states with the lowest graduation rates in the South have made extraordinary progress, even they have far to go to stay on pace, and others across the country are stagnant or backsliding. 7 states need to further accelerate their progress, those states in orange, and 23 states, those in red, are off pace to reach the national goal. Bob shows the challenge that remains and what we need to do to further accelerate our progress.
All right, so as Bridge was saying, this is sort of like this is halftime at the Super Bowl. And we're feeling pretty good because we're up by a few touchdowns, and then the lights go out. And the other side comes back, and it's hand-to-hand combat to the end. So now we're going to show you where we have to win that fight. So one of the new events this year, too, is for the first time we've come out with a common way to measure graduation rates. It's got the complicated name, the adjusted cohort graduation rate, but it basically means we're following first-time ninth graders and seeing how many of them graduate within 4 years and get a regular diploma. It lets us compare across states and districts in an apples-to-apples way that we haven't been able to do before. And looking at this data, we see some disturbing trends to go with our good news. So this slide shows us the states in which 66% or fewer of African Americans are graduating with their class still today after a decade worth of our efforts. And if you want to get nervous, look at California, Florida, Georgia, New York, Ohio, and Michigan. All of those states currently have African American graduation rates in the upper 50s or the low 60s, yet they educate over 40% of all of the nation's African American high school students. If we don't move those states, the nation won't meet its goal of 90% for all students in 2020. If we look at Hispanic students, we see a different group of states. And here we see also some of the continuing good news, because if you notice, Florida, Texas, and California are not on this chart. And that's really important because collectively they educate over 60% of the nation's Hispanic and Latino students. One area where we're not doing well with yet is our students with disabilities, our special education students. And here we see the number of states where the graduation rate for these students is actually now still below 50%, which means 1 in 2 of our special education students in a number of our states is not earning a diploma. And this also shows that states that even do very well often have their Achilles heels for one group of students or another. So in this case, we see the southern states, which have done really tremendous in raising their overall graduation rates and closing gaps between African American and Latino and white students, but they're not in the game yet with special education students. Many, in fact, don't even try to give them a diploma, but put them in a certificate of completion track, and that's why their grad rates are so low. We also see that all of us have much more work to do with limited English proficient students. This is the one area where we're not having success as a nation, and as the nation becomes more diverse, this challenge will only increase.
Thanks to your extraordinary work over the years, in the past few years, we've been able to feature a number of schools and states across the country, states like Tennessee and Alabama. Sure, cities like New York, Cincinnati, Houston, and Chicago. We can turn this into a convention. Suburban and rural areas, Richmond, Indiana, and Washington County, Maryland, led by our own beloved Betty Morgan, that are making significant gains and boosting graduation rates and rising to a standard of excellence. This year, we feature progress in the South, how much Texas matters, and how our partners are working together. While there are no silver bullets, there are common elements of the secret sauce of success, which we highlight in our report. In 2006, Time magazine made Shelbyville, Indiana, the poster school for Dropout Nation. From the superintendent to the community, Shelbyville got organized, focused like a laser on getting data on each of their 1,100 students, created a culture where every student counts. And by the way, the little girl on that cover went in to see the principal of the school, and she was basically begging to be told that she could make it, and was actually asked to leave, and now is still working in a fast food restaurant today. So they changed that culture from a culture of low expectation to one where every student counts and is expected to graduate. They used early warning data to spot early trouble and got teachers, counselors, and administrators working together to get students the supports they need to succeed. The graduation rate in Shelbyville increased from about 70% in 2005 to 90% in 2011. And I talked to the principal last week, and their cohort data shows a graduation rate of 93% for the class of 2012. This is a fixable problem, and perhaps less than a decade from now, Time can run a cover story, Graduation Nation. Guided by hope spots all across the country, strong data, good research, and the leadership of many of you here today, we work together to develop what's called a Civic Marshall Plan of Action to reach the Grad Nation goal, and to have General and Mrs. Powell appropriately lead that effort. The 10 planks of the Civic Marshall Plan reflect what research tells us works. It takes a cohort approach by identifying those students from the class of 2020, today's fifth graders, and targets the lowest performing schools where most of the dropouts are found, and encourages those reforms and interventions that will help keep more students on track to graduate high school, ready for college and for work. Now that we have the cohort rate data and the list of low-performing schools publicly available, we will be working with the United Way and other national partners to identify the feeder patterns to those low-performing high schools so we can all do a better job targeting and aligning our efforts.
So what's the path forward? Well, the most simple level, we have to take what we found has worked in the past decade and spread it to the places that's not working yet, the states and the students that are not progressing. We need to help spread our evidence-based strategies as through the Civic Marshall Plan to those places that still need improvement. We also know that in our high-needs high schools that remain, there are 1,400 of them, which are still producing most of the nation's dropouts, that those schools need to have a combination of school turnaround, school transformation, greatly improved teaching and learning, but also enhanced student supports guided by an early warning system, as we're finding with our Diplomas Now program and others, that it's really the combination of school reform plus enhanced student supports, smartly guided by data, which really lets us move forward. The other thing we know is that we're going to be able, within our communities and in our nation, to become better at micro-targeting, which will really let us focus our efforts, because we have this new fresh data, this new cohort data, which is going to let us really zero down, and each community can now do it themselves. And in our report, in the index, you will find links to your state, which will let you get the cohort graduation rates on all the schools in your state. So you can start figuring out in my community which high schools are driving the problem. Once we know that, we can figure out which middle schools are sending kids to those high schools, because we know it's going to be so critical to start in the middle grades to drive forward in our remaining challenge states. You'll also find state indices up for every state showing the progress the state is making in raising graduation rates, decreasing dropout rates, improving achievement, and we also have a guidebook that's being revised in May, which really brings together all the evidence-based strategies of how at the community level to drive progress forward.
Executive summaries of the report can be found on your tables, and I understand there's a new Grad Nation app where you can download all this good information. I think one of the more exciting aspects of this Grad Nation campaign has been the alignment across organizations, government, nonprofit, business, philanthropy, and public media to this work. We will now hear about some of the exciting ways in which these organizations are creating what we call these big institutional plays. Later, you will hear how AT&T is further aligning their efforts to the Grad Nation campaign. In this session, we'll hear from Pat Harrison, that charismatic president and CEO of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Stacy Stewart, the U.S. president and United Way worldwide leader who is doing such an extraordinary job, and Wendy Spencer, the CEO of the Corporation for National and Community Service, who has really helped to put national and community service back on the national map. And finally, former Governor Bob Wise, who works night and day, tirelessly devoted to this cause as the CEO of the Alliance for Excellent Education. But first, Mrs. Powell will introduce a very, very special guest. Thank you.
Very special for me to introduce a friend and a partner in our work. Laura Bush has made our children her priority long before she ever came to Washington, beginning as an elementary school teacher and librarian. Her 8 years in the White House didn't show her devotion to children, it magnified it. Whether she was advocating for better schools or supporting teachers, or helping give life to the largest early reading initiative in our nation's history. Laura Bush has always been guided by the simple but powerful belief that what is good for our children is good for the country. At no time was this more evident than when she stepped up to lead President Bush's Helping America's Youth Initiative, a groundbreaking 3-year partnership that focused support and attention on those kids who need it most, helping raise awareness of the challenges facing young men in particular. This initiative inspired Americans to connect more with youth at home, at school, and in the community. And that's exactly what we're talking about at this summit. And now at the George Bush Institute, the George W. Bush Institute, she continues this work. She is once again focused on the cause of education reform, including a focus on 2 of the vital issues that we will be discussing at this summit: improving accountability and improving instruction in the middle school years that play such a large part in determining whether students go all the way or drop out along the way. We are so grateful that she is here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome the former First Lady of the United States and our dear friend, Laura Bush.
Thank you very much, Alma, and thank you, General Powell. Thank you for bringing us all together for this Grad Nation Summit, and thanks especially for the terrific work you both do through America's Promise. I'm happy to be here for this Building a Grad Nation Summit, but I thought before I got started I'd give you a quick report on some of my family members. You'll be happy to hear that my father-in-law, President George H.W. Bush, is home from the hospital and he's doing very well. And my mother-in-law, Barbara Bush, is her usual funny and feisty self. George and I are happy that our girls are doing well. Jenna and Henry Hager are happily married, and as many of you may know, they're expecting our first grandchild this spring. Jenna is working as a contributing correspondent for NBC's Today Show. George says she's just continuing the Bush family tradition of warm relations with the media. Our daughter Barbara has founded a nonprofit called Global Health Corps that places recent college graduates in the health field in underserved areas. Her 3rd group of Global Health Corps fellows is at work in the United States and in 5 countries in Africa. You can learn more about Global Health Corps if you're interested by looking on the web at ghcorps.org. George and I are proud of the work our girls are doing, and we're happy to be back home in Texas, living what I call the afterlife in a state George calls the Promised Land. When we left the White House, we knew that we had left politics forever. But working through the new Bush Institute at the George W. Bush Presidential Center, we've remained involved in the policy issues that we care the most about: human freedom, economic growth, global health, and of course, education reform. Education has always been a top priority for both of us, from my earliest days as a teacher and throughout George's time as governor of Texas and then as president. The real influence on my decision to teach was my 2nd grade teacher. She was my favorite teacher, and I wanted to be just like her. So I wanted to be just like Miss Nagy from the 2nd grade on, and I stayed friends with her for the rest of her life. After a university degree in elementary education, I applied to teach at an inner-city, predominantly minority school. I wanted to work with children who had been left out and too often left behind. I wasn't prepared, though, for the poverty I encountered as a teacher at an inner-city Houston school. Most of the students lived on narrow side streets behind the school building, in houses with peeling paint. Some were hungry. They would come to school in the morning with their bellies rumbling and ravenously attack the free breakfast and lunch we gave them. I wanted to help these children so badly, to somehow reach into their lives and make a difference. But it was an uphill fight. Before I left that teaching job to go to graduate school, I took some of my favorite students to Astro World, the old amusement park by the old Astrodome. We picked up several eager kids, but when we came to the last house, the little boy who was supposed to go with us opened the door in his underwear. Though we could hear his mother in the back of the house, she never came to the door to give us permission to take him. So all I could do was hug him goodbye with an extra squeeze and leave him standing there to watch us all drive off to Astro World without him. Those days of teaching in inner city elementary schools in Houston and Dallas were some of my most challenging, but they were also incredibly rewarding. Later, when George was president, I met outstanding education leaders in school districts all across our country. Whether I was visiting a high school in New Orleans, or a middle school in inner city Chicago, or an elementary school in Kansas, great leaders stood out because of their extraordinary energy and enthusiasm and their superb organizational skills. These outstanding leaders share the same goal: to provide a quality education so that their students become responsible, productive citizens and lifelong learners. Like many of you here today, these great leaders are using all the resources available to them and looking for ways to do even more so that all of their students graduate ready for college or a good career. Through the Bush Institute's education reform initiatives, we're working to improve public education by emphasizing school leadership and by improving middle school education. George and I know that accountability is absolutely critical to education reform. Every child can learn. Schools must have the highest expectations for the performance of all students, and school leaders must have the authority to create meaningful change when those expectations are not met. I'd like to introduce right now our education program director, Dr. Carrie Briggs. Where's Carrie? Do we see her out here in the audience? And also the director, or the president of the Bush Institute, Jim Glassman, who's here at the front table with Alma Powell. Through the Bush Institute's Middle School Matters, we're focusing on improving middle school education so that our middle school students become high school graduates. For many students, the middle school years are difficult. Academic struggles are compounded by self-consciousness and peer pressure. Despite the challenges of middle school, we know that middle school is the best place to prepare students for success in high school. Research shows that many students drop out during middle school. They just leave in high school. With focused interventions, students who enter middle school struggling in core subjects can enter high school working at grade level. The Bush Institute, with the support of the Meadows Foundation, enlisted many of the nation's top education researchers and practitioners to develop Middle School Matters. Experts on reading intervention, cognitive science, writing, math, advanced reasoning, school, student, family, and community support, and school leadership identified principles and practices that are proven effective for middle school students. These research-based findings are the foundation for all aspects of our Middle School Matters initiative. The Bush Institute will host an online Middle School Matters Institute for middle school educators and administrators. The first session of the Middle School Matters Institute is this summer in partnership with the Meadows Center for Preventing Educational Risk, and thanks to the generous support of the Sid W. Richardson Foundation. Leadership teams from 8 middle schools will receive intensive training to develop their own school transformation plans. 3 schools that attend the summer conference will be selected to receive additional support and training during the 2013-2014 school year. The deadline for submitting your application is March 8th, so I hope that many of you will tell your school superintendents and principals about the Middle School Matters Institute and encourage them to apply. We look forward to welcoming schools from across the country. We're all here because we know the critical need for building a grad nation in America today. The dropout crisis affects every one of us, since dropouts are less likely to be employed, to vote, or to volunteer and give back to their communities. Their disappearance from our economy and from our civic life affects all of us, and all of us have the obligation to help. And because we know that there are early warning indicators for students likely to drop out, poor grades in English and math, poor attendance, or a record of misbehavior, we want to address those risk factors as early as possible. So in addition to our Middle School Matters Institute, I'm happy to announce the Bush Institute's Summit Series focused on early warning indicator and intervention systems, beginning this October at the new George W. Bush Presidential Center in Dallas. In partnership with Civic Enterprises, the Everyone Graduates Center at Johns Hopkins University, and the Meadows Center for the Prevention of Education Risk at the University of Texas, the Summit Series will help education leaders build frameworks to identify students who are off track for graduation and train leaders to use research-based interventions for those students. I invite you to stay tuned for more information about this Summit Series. The education challenges we face in America today are great, but greater still is our love for our children. Not all stories end in triumph. We all know that. And if I ever need to remind myself of that fact, all I have to do is think back to the memory of that little 9-year-old boy in Houston, standing at the door in his underwear, the little boy who didn't get to go to Astro World. He'd be in his 50s now. What happened to him, I ask myself sometimes. Is he still alive? Did he manage to escape that dilapidated house in Houston with the mother who wouldn't come to the door? Did he find another teacher who cared about him? Did he graduate from high school or even college and find a job where he was valued and where he could prove his worth? Is he standing in an airport right now, a proud father anxiously waiting for the plane that will bring his son or daughter home at last from Afghanistan? Or is he standing instead by a highway with a cardboard sign? Or sitting by himself in an empty, joyless room, wondering how it all turned out this way? So my challenge to you then is really the same challenge I've given myself: to never forget that little boy, to never forget that the work you're doing today can quite literally make all the difference in the world. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, please welcome Pat Harrison.
Good morning. I don't know how much more inspiring this summit could be. Every year it becomes more and more important to be here. And I am so pleased to be here. First of all, we're all listening backstage to start the day with those wonderful kids, the caring corporate citizens, Alma Powell, General Powell, and former First Lady Laura Bush. All of these people just sum up that the key word here is caring. We're Americans. When we care about something, we can fix the problem. And I'm just thrilled that we're back here 1 year later to mark such great progress as affirmed in the Powell Report. We ought to really realize all the time that there is strength in numbers, and by working together, we will help America's young people move from failure to a bright future as they stay on the path to hope, opportunity, achievement, and contribution. These are really our kids, and I always like to talk about when you're in a car and you're behind another car and you see the bumper sticker that says, "My child is an honor student," and it names the school. I want to see those bumper stickers that say, "I care about American kids. They all want to be honor students," and we can make that happen. We can. And while we have this great news, these great statistics, as Alma Powell and John Gompert and John Bridgeland advise, we really still have to stay on point. We have to accelerate change, replicate success, and amplify our voices. And I'm here this morning to give an update on what the Corporation for Public Broadcasting is doing with America's public broadcasting stations, radio and television, in terms of working through American Graduate. We're on air, we're online, and we're in virtually every community. And working with Deb Sanchez, many of you know her, CPB's Senior Vice President, and her dedicated team, we really have helped to do all three: accelerate, replicate, and amplify through the American Graduate Initiative. We are guided by the Civic Marshall Plan, and of course, we're working in partnership with America's Promise Alliance and over 800 local and national organizations, public television and radio stations in over 30 states have created content. You heard earlier about Frontline, engagement, and provided classroom resources to help young people stay on the path to a high school diploma. We have broadcast and streamed over 400 hours of quality programming, documentaries, films, local and national education news reports. And we've organized over 500 screening events across the country, forums and volunteer fairs, education workshops, and teacher town hall meetings. Last year, CPB launched the first ever American Graduate Day in New York through WNET, and I want to thank Michael Powell for getting us off to such a successful start. And we are preparing for American Graduate Day 2 this fall. This was such an important American Graduate First, a 7-hour broadcast and online event providing a unique opportunity for 20 national organizations, business, government, community, and education leaders, celebrities, sports figures, to highlight and to talk about what is really working on a local level, not in a one-size-fits-all way, but how people coming together are making a difference in their local communities, and furthermore, motivating people to serve as youth mentors. In addition to America's Promise Alliance, we worked with United Way, Communities in Schools, the Alliance for Excellent Education, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Civic Enterprises, and the Everyone Graduates Center at Johns Hopkins University, and many more. I'm sure all of you know that education is a core pillar of public media. And for decades, we have been committed to providing lifelong learning to all Americans for free and commercial free. And looking ahead, CPB will continue to strengthen the American Graduate Initiative and expand to even more stations and partnerships. We've got some exciting documentaries that are coming up in the year ahead, and one of them is called 180 Days, a year inside an American high school, produced by the National Black Programming Consortium. And I'm really thrilled that Jim Glassman is with us today because his series under the American Graduate banner really helped to amplify the issues, and all of the broadcasting that we're doing is a way to talk about the issue that invites people to understand as Americans we can turn these numbers around. So working with all of you and America's parents and teachers and students, we're going to keep these numbers going in the right direction and really ensure that America's young people fulfill their role as America's promise, not America's deficit. Let's make it happen. Thank you all very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Stacy Stewart.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's great to be with you all this morning. This has been an inspiring and somewhat emotional morning this morning. I was listening to, as you all were, the stories of those young people. The story from Mrs. Bush about the 9-year-old boy that she met at the door. And those wonderful ads from Target. I think this morning, I'm lucky not to be coming out here in full tears with you all this morning. But I certainly am inspired, especially with the story from Mrs. Bush. My husband grew up in inner city Houston as well. And it really touched my heart to hear her tell that story. I immediately knew that that wasn't my husband standing at the door, though, because my mother-in-law would never have allowed him to do that. And she certainly, having raised 5 kids successfully, would always have made sure he was at the front of the line to go to Astro World. But we all are moved by that story and realize that there are many, many other kids who need our help. We also know that, and I'm evidence of it, and my husband is, and many of you, that having a caring and concerned adult in your life makes a huge difference, and so that's our commitment today. At United Way, we advance the common good by creating opportunities for a better life, by working on the building blocks for a good life, education, financial stability, and health. And in 2008, we announced some very ambitious goals, not only for ourselves, but for the country as a whole, some big, bold goals. And in education, we announced that we would work with others, many partners, many of you in the room and others, to cut the dropout rate in half. We knew we couldn't do this alone, and our business model at United Way is to work across sectors, to work with many, many partners and people who want to work together on a common outcome. And since that time, since 2008, we have been working very, very hard with our partners, with volunteers, with advocates, and with donors to increase the number of children that are ready to learn in school early in life, to ensure that children are reading by 3rd grade and reading to learn by 4th grade, by helping kids progress through middle school successfully and transition to good high schools, and then helping young people graduate on time, ready for college, career, and life. United Way has given national lift to this issue by working with many partners. We've worked with the White House Council for Community Solutions to hold nearly 150 community conversations in 37 communities across the country on opportunity youth, or youth that were formerly disconnected. We've held a national town hall to share with the country what we've learned in many, many conversations around the country about what people think about the issues of education and what they are prepared to do about it. We've hosted an out-of-school town summit to explore best practices in engaging children after school and in summer. And we are well on our way to recruiting 1 million volunteer readers, tutors, and mentors with our partnership and the help of the National Football League, Big Brothers Big Sisters, and many, many other community partners as well. I want to thank so many of our partners who are in the room today, many of them who've come on the stage this morning. The role that they have been playing, working with us and us with them, has been tremendous. But we certainly have heard today that we have more work to do. We must continue to find the children that are most at risk for academic failure or for dropping out. We've got to continue to secure data and information that communities need in order to be able to make the best decisions and deploy the best resources most strategically, and deploy people in the ways that will help make the most difference. We have been working with Dr. Bob Balfons and with Bridge to help more United Ways identify the middle schools and elementary schools that feed into those lowest performing high schools all around the country. Communities like Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Jacksonville, Atlanta, and Phoenix, and many others have worked with their school systems to identify the school feeder patterns and establish early warning systems within those schools that feed into the lowest performing high schools. These United Ways are leveraging their relationships with community partners and with business partners as well to organize wraparound supports and services to ensure that students and their parents are being supported in and out of school. In Phoenix, our Valley of the Sun United Way is using the feeder patterns right now to forge partnerships with specific school districts and focus those efforts on specific schools in ways that will improve academic and non-academic efforts. We're also releasing this spring an effort and a new guide that will help many United Ways and their community partners to map these feeder patterns and help them understand how to use the information to further their collective impact efforts. Also, through a grant from the Altria Foundation and in partnership with the Forum for Youth Investment, we're building the capacity of 9 local United Ways to build local coalitions focused on the middle grades using the Ready by 21 framework. We also, and I'm very pleased to announce this, we will soon be rolling out this spring the first ever partnership of United Ways who are working in alignment together on driving the common outcomes of graduation rates in their communities, but giving lift to this work nationally. Many of you know the United Way Network is built on a strong network of 1,200 independent organizations at the local level. Our strength is certainly to make partnerships happen at the local level, to drive change at the local level, but we know that we will be a more powerful national network if we help our United Ways and our community partners learn to work in alignment together, and that's what our new Graduation Initiative Partnership is all about. So stay tuned to hear more from that. It certainly is a pleasure to be with you all this morning, and I want to encourage you all to continue to do all that you're doing to further the needle, to move the needle, to help more kids be able to graduate. We have so much work that we've done, but we have so much work that we need to do, and we need to build off of the momentum that we're focused on today with all the excitement and enthusiasm to move forward. So thank you so much.
Please welcome the CEO from the Corporation for National and Community Service, Wendy Spencer.
Good morning, Grad Nation champions. All right, so I wore a shiny jacket to celebrate the Oscars. But, however, my idea of an Oscar is very different than Hollywood's, and I hope you'll share my idea for an Oscar as well. My idea of an Oscar is that it is a high school graduation degree for every student in America. Is that the Oscar we want? Right? That's the Oscar we want. So that's what I'm celebrating today. I'm really excited. National Service through AmeriCorps and Senior Corps has always been about taking America's greatest resource, our citizens, and applying it to our nation's greatest challenges. And we all know that no challenge is greater or more important than delivering a quality education to every child in America. So collectively, all of us in this room and all of our advocates and friends across the nation in our education world have to wrap our arms around our children. We have to strengthen our schools, boost our graduation rates, shift the odds of success in the students' favor, where students will come first. That's why about 1/2 of every National Service dollar goes to education, to programs that bring tens of thousands of caring adults to schools across the nation. Every day, AmeriCorps members and Senior Corps volunteers are giving students who are off track extra time, extra attention, and the support they need, which can make a difference between success and failure. The stakes could not be higher today. That's why more and more National Service members are using data to drive results using early warning indicators like attendance, behavior, and success in their classwork to spot students who are off track and then to intervene through service. And AmeriCorps Vista members, our capacity builders, are making sure their support for students extends far beyond the school grounds, mobilizing volunteers, running programs, building community partnerships, and enhancing school capacity. We actually wanted to sort of check ourselves to make sure are our resources being placed in the right places. Sort of look under the hood, if you will. Now, when you do this, you kind of hold your breath because when you're checking on yourself, you don't know what's going to come out. So we held our breath. Our research team worked very hard, and I'm very pleased with the results. I'm real happy to announce today that our data shows that we have National Service members in 1 out of every 10 public schools in America. That means that 11,700 schools across America have AmeriCorps and Senior Corps volunteers serving in them. That is impact. We're getting there. But not only that, we dug just a little bit deeper. We found that members are serving in 1 out of every 4 of our nation's persistently low achieving schools. So we're headed in the right direction, I really believe. And National Service is reaching some of the students in schools that really need it most, and that's where we need to focus. But we really wanted to do more. We wanted to look at what else we could do. So last year we joined the White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships and the Department of Education to launch Together for Tomorrow, an initiative that taps AmeriCorps Vista members to bridge together communities and schools for education success. Just this past summer, we announced a commitment of over 100 Vista members to Together for Tomorrow initiative. That was our goal. As we're rolling into the months of doing this, we get excited, and I'm sort of a quick to say yes, slow to say no kind of person. So right midstream, we doubled our efforts, and now we have almost 200 AmeriCorps Vista members in cities across 19 states in America powering Together for Tomorrow. These Vista members, working closely with community partners, have the potential to bring more volunteers and more private resources to struggling students in schools where they need it. So that still wasn't enough. We said, what else can we do? So today, we're thrilled to announce an exciting new partnership with the Department of Education that will put more dedicated AmeriCorps members in persistently underachieving schools across the nation to increase the graduation rate and end the dropout crisis. The initiative is called School Turnaround AmeriCorps, and you'll hear more about it from Secretary Duncan later this afternoon, so that's a little bit of a teaser. The potential for School Turnaround AmeriCorps is great as we join forces between AmeriCorps, Department of Education, school districts, and communities. To boost the impact even further, we are also looking for private sector partners. So if you're out there, let us know. We want to bring you into the fold as well. So I hope you can see that through National Service, we're working to deliver the right supports to the right students in the right places. But today's announcements from Mrs. Bush and from Dr. Balfance and John Bridgeland and the Powells, to me, it inspires me and it gives me hope. What also gives me hope is listening to Jaime and Devante, his friends call him Tay, and Melanie, because that's what we need to focus on. They needed extra help and support to make sure they succeed. So on behalf of the Corporation for National and Community Service, we're proud to stand with each one of you in this room and those across the country to make sure that every child has every chance to succeed So thank you, Grad Nation champions. I'm with you. Thank you.
And now, please turn your attention to the special feature stage and welcome the Honorable Governor Bob Wise.
Good morning. So turn over here, because what this shows is that if we're going to build a grad nation and truly make a difference, we got to come at you from all directions. So I'm delighted because last night, as Wendy was saying, we were all, many of us, looking at the Oscars. And I realized that last night was about Hollywood, but I'm sitting amidst a room of where everyone is an Oscar winner. You get the award for Best Producer of Educational Results, and the proof is we're all sitting on a red carpet. Congratulations for what you're doing. My name is Bob Wise, and I'm the president of the Alliance for Excellent Education, former governor of West Virginia, and delighted to be here as one of the 4 core partners hosting and participating in Grad Nation. Grad Nation, as you know, has set that ambitious goal and reachable goal of reaching a 90% graduation rate by 2020. But this goal needs all stakeholders, including Congress, administration, business, educators, and communities, to pool our resources to make effective investments and build upon promising practices. So as Congress and the President, and incidentally all state leaders, struggle to improve our economy, they need to consider something. This map, and this map, of course, looks pretty uniform right now. But look what's happening to this map, and particularly for our children. What you see here are the 10 states where children of color and Native students now are 40 to 49% of the public school students in those states. But look further. There are an additional 12 states where students of color are the majority of the public school population. These 22 states, with populations of students of color larger than 40%, now make up 2/3 of the total public school population nationwide. You can see how imperative it is that our nation address the education inequality in order to produce better outcome for all of our students. And this is a moral imperative, but now it is a money imperative as well. Because what we know that is in 2/3 of our economy, our gross domestic product, is driven by consumerism. That is, our ability to buy goods and services. Yet only about 1/3 of students of color only about a third of our students of color are ill-equipped to significantly contribute to the economy because they don't graduate or don't graduate college and career ready. Thanks to the support of State Farm in building an economic model, we now know that a high school dropout will, at the peak of his or her earnings, make about $9 an hour. And yet, if they are able to get that diploma and go on to get some kind of post-secondary, it's going to be $20 to $25 an hour. In an economy that depends upon consumers, which is our ticket to success? $9 an hour or $20 to $25 an hour? So that's why this is so critical. Look at this map. Whenever there's an achievement gap in schools, there's going to be a widening earnings gap in the economy. Bob Balfonte and John Bridgeland spoke to the academic achievement in our schools. But our nation's economic achievement depends as well on all students doing well. So here are some of our challenges. We know that in order to turn our schools around, we need a solid foundation of reform, and we also need strategic investments, spending money smartly, in order to support our nation's students. However, you can see from the chart that foundation of financing is eroding. In addition to possible spending cuts from Washington, states are struggling to maintain their investments in education. According to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, 35 states provide less student aid, provide less per student today than they did just 5 years ago. and it is very possible that cuts will continue as Congress and the administration wrestle with the ongoing battle over the federal budget. We also know that changes have come from Washington, because Congress has not been able to come to terms on how to change No Child Left Behind, which expired 4 years ago, the Department of Education has provided waivers to states, and you can see the states in blue that have waivers. From some of the law's key provisions in exchange for state-led reform in the areas of college and career-ready standards, accountability, and teacher evaluation. As of today, 34 states and the District of Columbia have received those waivers. That's important to each of you in your community. Did your state get a waiver? And if so, what did they agree to do with it? And while that waiver for the next 2 years is being implemented, we have to make sure that we monitor their implementation and make sure that our key priorities are maintained, such as a strong focus on all of our students and also graduation rate accountability. So what can all of us do? First, to hear more about what's happening in Washington by attending the policy session taking place after this plenary. Yes, that's a shameless appeal that I've just made for you to attend our session. But also, it is critically important that you continue through writing letters and emails and visiting your members of Congress and to let the Congress and administration know how important it is to maintain the focus on our lowest performing schools. And incidentally, it's working. President Obama announced in his State of the Union message a new challenge to support high school redesign. This has strong potential to continue our drive toward the Grad Nation goal of 90%. Continuing to implement as well the Civic Marshall Plan's 10 planks to build a Grad Nation. This comprehensive strategy is having an impact, and we need to keep up the good work. And finally, we have to remind all of our policymakers, and right now they're right in the midst of working about how do we improve the economy. We have to remind them that America's economic growth will go up only when graduation rates go up. Building a Grad Nation. When you build a Grad Nation, you build a strong economy and you build a strong nation. All of you are truly, along with all of our teachers and principals and educators, all of you are truly nation builders today. Thank you very, very much.
And now on the main stage to moderate our panel discussion on the business perspective on why achievement matters, please welcome NBC News' Rahema Ellis.
Good morning, everybody. Because we have a very short amount of time, we're going to jump into this very quickly. Let me introduce our panelists for you. As Bob Wise said, if we want a strong economy, we've got to have a strong, educated population. And so, talking about the economy, how about getting some business people and some educators with us? Mary Crego, who is the Senior Vice President with State Farm Insurance. Matthew Given, who is with Edison Learning, Executive Vice President. Also, Gregory Capelli, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Apollo Group, and Beth Shirosi, who is with AT&T, Vice President, and also interested in sustainability and philanthropy. I'm going to jump right in and ask this question. How much cooperation do you get with schools, particularly high schools, to partner with them to say, let us help you inform students of what it is they need to know, so when they graduate with that diploma, they'll be able to go into a business and we will want to hire them. Mary, do you get cooperation to do this?
We do get cooperation, and certainly it's on a location by location basis. We have, where our corporate headquarters are in Bloomington, Illinois, tremendous cooperation. Those of you that know Kathy Payne, and it's like traveling with a rock star to be with Kathy. Yes. In our corporate headquarters, and also in some of those areas across the country where we have tremendous numbers of employees, we do get tremendous cooperation. They want to know what are the skills that you want for employees when they come into the marketplace.
Matthew Given with Edison Learning, is it something that you are trying to make certain that students are well aware of it's all well and good to be academically astute, but it's also important that you are market astute, correct?
True, absolutely. And not only from a job readiness perspective, but any post-secondary life skills perspective. And that's what we bring, actually, in our partnerships with school districts, are exactly that. We bring that to bear with the companies, with Magic Johnson, our partner, bringing that community empowerment focus for kids to make sure they're connected to their community and to their life choices after high school.
And Gregory, how do you market it to scale, though? Because we can talk about, and I'm sure people in this room even know, that there are individual cases of excellence where this is happening. How do you market it to scale? Are you able to give us some idea of how that might happen?
Well, I think, in our case, Apollo Group, running University of Phoenix and a number of their schools around the country, first of all, we depend heavily on kids coming out of high school with the skills that are necessary and to be successful in college. And there was a period of time when the data was not going in our favor there with the excellent results you see here. I think that is on its way back. But scale is important. That somebody brought up earlier, 3.5 million jobs that aren't being filled because we don't have the skills to actually deliver them in the U.S. That's why these are being outsourced. I think when you talk about scale, you have to be able to have a system in place that allows us to be able to touch not only kids coming out of high school, but working adults as well, in a way that they can transform those skills that they're learning in high school and then earlier in their career to have success going forward so they can be competitive.
We got a lot of issues here in terms of who are you bringing into our school? Who's going to pay for it? How is it going to be administered? What's happening in that regard?
There is compelling evidence that poverty and stress affect every aspect of a child's young life.